Hello, welcome to the comic binge. Wow, what a weekend, Chris. This is crazy. This is insane weekend. We've got lots of stuff going on, and let's be real. This is a big weekend for comic book movies. I guess you could say. Though I have to admit, I'm having a hard time describing superhero films as just straight comic book films because comic books kind of covers a broader spectrum than just superheroes. And like when I think comic book films, I think of obviously this like stuff like this, but I also think of like Unbreakable. But Unbreakable is a superhero movie. It's not necessarily a comic book movie, right? Am I wrong?
Ghost World's a comic book movie.
Well, I know Ghost World is too, but so is like American Splendor. But anyway, big week. But this is a big weekend because obviously the Justice League Zack Snyder version or cut or whatever you want to call it was finally released, and it was just a big moment for a lot of people. And I wouldn't say it was a huge moment for us, but it was a big moment for us though, because we're both obviously big fans of the material. We have a lot to say about obviously Man of Steel and BVS before Justice League. We had a lot. We had a lot to say about Justice League when it came out. Now, with everything that's going on, it only felt right that we covered, I think, the Snyder Cut as a review, because I don't really have an outlet for a review besides the Marvel stuff, and I want to talk about it, and so do you. But also, I want to talk about the comic book references and where to go to read stuff after this movie, because if one thing I want to have happen, and this has always been since I was a kid, was when comic book movies come out, like a Batman or whatever, I want people to want to go read comic books afterwards. Like I want that to happen. So we'll give, if you're kind of on the peripheral idea of reading comic books after watching the Snyder Cut, or you want to get more into the Justice League, let me tell you something. Chris Clow himself is a giant DC person. Like I am not the DC person. Chris Clow is, and I love DC, but Chris Clow is that he is the DC to my Marvel, and I think we both agree, even though we both have some knowledge in both things, right? So there is that, but at the same time, this is more your game, and I'm going to be asking Chris a lot of questions. I'm going to be asking just kind of the references that he knows and just kind of bug him about it, and I'm also going to be doing my whole thing. So there's a lot to talk about here. So, Chris, I guess I'm assuming everyone's going to see this movie. So, spoiler alert. I mean, come on. If you haven't seen this movie yet, well, I guess you kind of understand, right? Because it's 4 hours long.
Well, I mean, there's a whole other element to the conversation, too, because you've seen a version of this movie before, and there are certainly an abundance of differences. But just in terms of the broad strokes are pretty similar.
Right.
But a 4 hour movie, you don't really talk about the broad strokes and capture everything that happens. So
no,
I mean, look, a 4 hour movie is a hard thing to fit into a schedule. I can empathize. Paul and I are both parents.
You did it for me though. I mean, I made this guy. So first of all, we were going to watch it together for the first time, and then I backed out because I backed out first because I thought I was going to watch it on Friday. Didn't end up happening, which is fine. But I remember being like, and then you were like, well, anyway, so I ended up watching the whole thing with Chris for the first time, which is great because we stopped and talked so many times. And also I had probably in 4 hours, like 50 pee breaks. I want to say it was a lot.
Right around 48, 49.
Yeah, it was around 48. It was a lot. I peed a lot. I ain't gonna lie. I have a bladder of a toddler, so that's just the way it goes. But anyway, we were supposed to watch it together, but the best part was, and this is why I'm so glad he lives here, ladies and gentlemen, is that I can experience these things with Chris. We've experienced certain movies together here or there, but we finally were able to like this last couple of months to experience things together. And it's just been so much fun, and the Snyder Cut's no exception, right? So anyway, we sat down, we watched it, and it was great to have Chris as that person to be like, this is blah, 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 and this is this, and this is that. And I'm like, oh. And I knew some of the things he said. I had no idea about some of them. So it was great. So Chris is very much going to be that kind of role for all of you. So strap yourselves in. We're gonna be here a while, not like all night. We're not gonna pull a Snyder cut and be here for 4 hours, probably an hour and a half, which has been our sweet spot. So, but we're gonna break down all the stuff, and I guess let's just talk about our thoughts overall. I mean, let's just kind of get it out of the way. Chris, you go first because you kind of elaborated on your review. But what is your take on this movie and where you kind of fits into the DC pantheon of film stories and like with your love of the comics, kind of all that together? What's your take right now?
Well, I mean, when it comes right down to it, and as some people know who have followed things I've said in the past, I was not abundantly critical of the theatrical cut. I think I was like maybe one of 4 people I know who didn't hate it. And that's because the theatrical cut, I said when I reviewed it for the first time that it was a clumsy, haphazard, patched together mess, because it is. Anyone who watches it and who has even a modicum of familiarity with what happened to the movie behind the scenes knows it's a hatchet job, and it very much comes off like a hatchet job. It's the very disparate tones, obviously some visual effects that kind of made reshoots stick out like a sore thumb, all of those things. But at the end of the day, the thing that enchanted me about it, and I said as much in my review of this version, was seeing a more heroic Superman, a Superman who was more truthful to the guy that I know, because particularly after Snyder's last full effort, I missed seeing that. And Zack Snyder's Justice League does not wipe away my notions of his previous work with the characters. I still have, I'm still critical of his previous work in adapting the characters. But I'm really relieved to say that his version of Justice League is his best DC Comics movie. And I'm not being flippant when I say that. One of the things that relieved me, at least when it comes to Superman, is that the tone as presented in the director's cut compared to the movie we saw over 3 years ago was not as far apart as I had feared. You know, you can dress it up with quippy one-liners all you want to, but really the core of Superman at this story was not greatly altered from where we saw the theatrical cut, and I'm glad for that. There was significantly more substance in this version, as I expected there to be. I didn't know if I was going to like that substance, and I really did. This is a guy who has found the value of his humanity. And it took him to die before he was able to fully realize it, but he did realize it. And I loved the moment when he's just in the farmhouse and he said, "I loved it here too." And it was just kind of a slow, I know that you were kind of frustrated at some of the stuff with Lois, but slowing things down from that more humanistic side, because you're dealing with gods and monsters for all of these, for the majority of the movie. And it's only when you deal with Superman's family directly, that you get some of those quieter human moments. But there were quieter human moments throughout all of this, as I hoped there would be in a 4-hour movie. And at the end of the day, you know, the significant service that Cyborg gets compared to where we saw things before did this movie a ton of favors. And one of the things that I said in my review is that, you know, Ray Fisher's chops as a Shakespearean actor from his days on the stage comes fully to bear in his performance in this movie. He brings the reality, the emotional reality of going through such a massive transformation on top of an extraordinarily debilitating loss. And then he has another loss while he's also dealing with these other things and trying to find his place in the world. That was really great to see. And it really kind of helps to justify the whole reason for the movie. But then on top of that stuff, like you said, DC is where I've hung my hat. And the addition of Darkseid, seeing far more of the apocalyptic hierarchy and seeing it embrace those kind of long-arm cosmic concepts for a conflict that I really despise the overuse of the word epic, because if you describe everything as epic, then nothing is epic. but in the fullest sense of the word, particularly with the Age of Heroes flashback up through that last stare down between the League and Darkseid himself, that was epic. And you really do get to see the kinds of conflicts and the kinds of scope that I feel helps to make the DC universe a really great shared comics universe in comparison with stories you can get elsewhere. It doesn't disqualify my love for those other stories, and it doesn't disqualify my love for those other characters. And for the record, I do think there are better DC Comics films than Zack Snyder's Justice League. But I was really pleasantly surprised at how much I loved the vast majority of this movie. 85 to 90% of it I have no real problem with. I haven't even talked about the characterization of Batman, but I'm sure that we can get into that. But I really like this movie, and I wasn't expecting to. I was honestly expecting not to like it as I went into it and had resigned myself. But that was mostly due to stuff that didn't have anything to do with the movie.
Well, how would you go in expecting not to like it? I mean, I guess, why can't you go into it like to be like, this surprised me? Why can't you have expectations?
Honestly, that's what
This is the pot called the kettle black, by the way. I mean, let's be real here.
No, I mean, it's a fair question, and I can't deny, even if I don't like the fact that I don't like Dawn of Justice very much. I want to make that clear. This is not something that I revel in. Like some people who I've interacted with on Twitter, for instance, it's almost like they think I revel in the idea that, oh, I don't like this movie. I don't like a movie that features my two favorite characters in fiction. Are you kidding me? I was waiting my entire life for that movie. Yeah. But I cannot deny that coming out of it, I was heartbroken. And I wanted to feel like it was building them up, and I felt the opposite. But thankfully, now that we've seen how this story ends, for all intents and purposes, I feel like I can watch BVS with a greater sense of appreciation for the high that I know will come. But I still have issues with that movie. That's fine because Justice League stands on its own in a pretty solid way, and I was very satisfied with it. So going into it, it's hard to separate, like there's these things I've seen from certain people that I think is a little bit aberrant. And I mean, there's good and bad elements to every fan base. It's just the most vocal components did not paint the fan base that really clamored for this movie in the best light in my eyes going into this. Separating all of that stuff and just watching the movie and letting the movie speak for itself, that was the difference maker, and I liked it. I liked it quite a lot.
Well, I can tell you right now that I'm trying to remember. I can't remember. Ryan, maybe you help me on this. We did a review for Batman on Film for the original Whedon cut, and I was very excited about Justice League because I love the original trailer that Zack presented at what was it, San Diego Comic-Con 2017, 16? I forgot what it was, whatever year it was. And I was really excited about the tone and the scope of it looked really, really massive. And I was really excited for that idea. I'm someone who loves Man of Steel. I did not love it initially, but I grew to love it. I mean, Chris, I remember me and you talking about it years ago when it first came out. And I think Man of Steel is one of my favorite DC movies ever. And now I've got BVS. I liked it more than most people did, I felt, when it came out. I definitely understand people's problems with it.
And for the record, too, I just want to say, before you jump into it even more, like the typical things that people bring up about BVS, and you and I have talked about this a lot.
Yes.
I had no problem with Martha. Not a single problem. If you're going to position Batman as a character who sees Superman as nothing more than an otherworldly menace and doesn't have a concept for what humanity looks like, him learning that his mother shares the name of the mother of this otherworldly alien is a good way to get the foot in the door. So
I agree. I agree. Now, and I still stand by the Martha thing as it's over dramatic. I think that's what people's main problem with the Zack Snyder stuff. It's just over dramatic in general.
And I like it.
Yeah, whatever you want to, it's over the top, whatever you want to say it is. I mean, I don't think it is. It's definitely a style that he goes for, and he's going for a more reverent kind of thing for the superheroes instead of kind of the jokey kind of stuff that Marvel kind of tends to do with, and not take itself completely seriously. And I say that I don't think Marvel doesn't take itself seriously, but there's a little bit.
But like
there's a tongue in cheek with Marvel, a little bit.
In BVS, the core example of what you just cited to me was that scene where the family is on top of the house that's flooded, and they're reaching up into the sky, and Superman is floating there, and it's a beautiful image. You could never take anything from Zack Snyder's visual acumen or Larry Fong's visual acumen away, but it's just like, just help him, man.
No, I get you. I get you. So
just go down and save them.
So here's the thing with Justice League. I really enjoyed the movie, the Justice League, or whatever. I don't like calling it that. I think it's ridiculous, but whatever. The original, the theatrical cut of Justice League, I enjoyed. I didn't love it, but there was parts of it I liked. And it was just nice to see those heroes together. But it definitely was a little hokey at times, and I didn't like that aspect necessarily of it. And I didn't like how you could literally pinpoint exactly, for the most part, which I will get to in a little bit, I could see exactly where Joss came in and said, let's reshoot this. Cause you see like Ezra's hair is like, oh, like just kind of it's not consistent, which is, it's irritating. So all that being said, I did like the film. I gave it a decent score. I remember thinking cause I thought it was enjoyable. It was a kind of a good time. I've tried to rewatch it a couple times since, and it definitely I didn't like it as much the other times. It's still fine. It's still fun, but whatever. But when we watched the Snyder Cut this weekend, and I was expecting to enjoy it. And Chris, as a witness, how many times did I look at you and go, I can't believe how good this is? Like how many times?
I lost count.
Because probably as many times I went up and gotten peed. To be honest, which was a lot. I probably said that a lot.
Yeah, you're like, okay, I gotta pee. Man, I can't believe how good this is.
Yeah, I think I said it every time. Yeah, I get back and go, man, I'm like, I feel so good, and I can't believe how good this is. Not just the pee, but like the movie. No, but seriously, so many times I came in or I look at Chris, I'd be like, dude, this is so good. I can't believe how good this is, because all the things that I liked about the movie, or about the original theatrical cut, I can't talk. Oh my God. It just enhanced. And that's something that you brought up, Chris, was that it makes everything just breathe that much better.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Everything that I liked about Justice League was just like literally taking a steroid injection into its arm and just going, and it just made me go, yes. And so I couldn't believe just how great it was. And not just from, I think, the characterization, because listen, I can have all the greatest characterization in the world, but if I don't have good action scenes with superheroes, I'm out. Like,
well, seriously. That's never going to be a problem in a Zack Snyder movie. Never.
Well, I mean, no, but regardless, here's my point though. I was blown away. Okay. For instance, let's bring up the underground, is it a sewer scene? What do you call that scene with the
under Gotham Harbor at Stryker's Island?
Is that considered a sewer?
I mean, I don't think so, but I think people know what you mean.
Well, I know. I was curious. I'm like, I just didn't know.
More like an aqueduct.
I didn't know if poop was floating around there or not. Anyway, regardless. So that whole scene, it was fine in the movie, the original theatrical cut. I liked it, but then we were watching it together, it's just amazing. Like I couldn't believe how much more action was in there, and how I was loving every single second of it.
Well, and it was heavier too.
Yes.
I think that the thing that I appreciated about the difference between the two versions, first of all, everything in the theatrical cut happens so quickly that you blink and you miss it. And the scene, which Ryan Haas is correct, the Nightcrawler scene, that's a good way of putting it. Nightcrawler scene, everything from beginning to end, from when they first sort of sneak up into seeing Steppenwolf, along with the fight up through the end until he escapes, and then Aquaman comes in and saves him, then everybody escapes. the action just had more weight to it. And you saw, I appreciated seeing Batman struggle against a parademon for longer. You know, it wasn't, he didn't just swoop in, kick the crap out of a parademon and then, you know, swing away to the next thing. No, he had to work for it. And it helped to emphasize the power differential between he and the rest of the team and why he needs to be the tactician. And that's the role that he pretty much serves. He's like, I'm going to be a tactician. And then when the time is right, I'm going to use everything at my disposal to be a distraction. And that's what he was at the end. That's what he thought he was going to be a martyr at the end of the movie. And I thought that was kind of an interesting thread because he came into his own and saw something larger than himself. But working to fight a lot against that parademon, it kind of, weirdly enough, man, this is a reference that I think you'd appreciate. It reminded me of Mando working on that one Dark Trooper, you know?
Oh yeah. Like I get what you're saying. Like he's out of his element, but but it's still within the context. He takes care of business, but he's over his head. I mean, Batman is Batman, but parademons are powerful. You know what I mean?
He makes more of a difference once he gets to the Nightcrawler, and he did that in the theatrical cut too. But you felt it more. You feel everything more in this.
Yeah, no, exactly.
The scale of the photography was just bigger.
So kind of rounding out my thoughts of the movie just in general before we kind of get more specific kind of things from this. I couldn't believe how good it was. I keep saying that, but it's true. I expected to like it. I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did, and I'm itching to rewatch it. The problem is, and this is the main problem, is that it's so long, and having, you know, a little girl now, it's getting that time to sit down and watch it with my best friends Chris here is tough. And maybe I do a watch party with like the Let's Go and the BOF and all, you know, and you know, got all those guys, like this, everyone, you know, Batman Book Club, you know, all you guys, you know, like let's just all get it together and do a big live rewatch of Justice League, you know, whatever, if we can, if our wives and girlfriends or partners won't kill us. But no, I thought it was that.
It's a big commitment.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know.
Oh, by the way, too, Libra Mayo cover variant.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
It's just 59, but it's kind of cool.
But yeah, so I thought this movie was really great, and I right now at this moment, it might, and again, I need to rewatch it. And this is the problem is it's going to be hard for me to rewatch it, but I may love it. Maybe it might be my favorite DC movie. I don't know. Like I legitimately don't know if I love it that much. I know I love it a lot. It might be my favorite of all of a whole Snyder trilogy, which is, you know, which I love Man of Steel a lot. I still do. But I'm telling you right now, I love this movie, and I can't wait to actually get this on a.
Well, it's funny
disc.
As I was leaving your house,
yes,
I was trying to tell you, look, man, I like it better than Joker, and you're like, I don't know.
I don't know. I love Joker too. I love Joker. But see, it's like, again, you're comparing like a super artsy film with a like. And kind of an artsy influenced action film, which we'll get into that. I'll get more into that later, but you can't compare the two. You just can't.
I mean, where's the source of the expression, right? Because I think I remember Todd Phillips saying the thing that inspired him to make Joker was he had another movie coming out the same weekend as Suicide Squad. And he's like, Suicide Squad is going to pound the crap out of my movie. What can I do to make some money? I'll make one of those. That's how I can make some money. And
well, I mean,
he absolutely did.
Well, I mean, they're all in it for money, man. Let's be real.
Well,
I mean, you can't differentiate that. I mean, and here's the thing though, too. He had an idea and he ran with it, and it's good. I mean,
oh, hey, look, I give him all the credit, and I think that movie is a fine movie.
Do you though?
Yes, I do. Dude, we were on the same. Come on, man.
Were we?
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, let's move on. We gotta break this thing down. We got a lot to talk about. Okay, so let's kind of go through some of these. Comparison with the theatrical cut, tone, length of similar scenes. So kind of everything together, you know, comparisons. I mean, just the fact that they're like on a basic level, they're the same movie. Well, like one is like a skinny kid version, one's like the super size. Like give me the supersized fries, the triple Big Mac with a side of with an ice cream cone on the side. That's what it feels like this movie is.
But while we were watching it, I pulled up the theatrical cut on my phone in a few instances, because we could watch like these full sequences of the theatrical cut pretty quickly. And I think the one that immediately comes to mind is the scene with Gordon. And when he goes to talk to Gordon, Gordon says in the Snyder cut, he says, "I know what it looks like, Crispus." And you go to the theatrical cut, and he says, "I know what it looks like." And you heard the beginning of him about to say Crispus, who's kind of a sloppy.
I remember you told me that. Yeah.
Weird. But I mean, that's a really good example of just the scene, not significant value to the overall plot. It's just like a character building moment.
Yeah.
It breathes more. And who can say no to more J.K. Simmons as Gordon?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I think comparisons to the theatrical cut is that, and Pete, you said it best, that this was basically the best characterization of Aquaman we've gotten. And I like Aquaman. Like, I didn't mind him necessarily in the theatrical cut completely. There's a couple moments where I'm like, rolled my eyes maybe. And obviously the film is a pop culture or a mainstream pop movie. It's like Fast and the Furious meets a, basically superhero film, which it worked. And I like that movie, but his characterization is not my favorite, though I do like him more at the end of the movie than obviously the beginning. But his characterization in the Snyder cut is phenomenal. It's perfect. It's exactly what I think, obviously I think what Zack was going for, and it got totally conveyed the right way. And I will say, I do hope we get more of that characterization in the next Aquaman movie, which I think you easily can do. And Pete, comment on the below if you agree with this. I'm curious, but I think that with this movie, you can kind of build off of that and kind of build towards that with this movie and the last Aquaman movie, because he's been through some stuff now. He's been through a fight with Steppenwolf. He's been through a fight with his brother and all that jazz. And he's a king and yada, yada, yada. Was it?
Half brother.
Dude, brother's your brother, Holmes. You're my brother.
He said it in the movie. I know you're making a joke, man. Come on.
You can't joke in this. You can't joke in this. Only
no jokes allowed in the.
No, not from you. Not from you, sir. Only from me. But my point is this, though. My point is, you can easily have that same characterization, I think, gradually, and not just be like an obvious, or you have to go this way. I think there's more of a story reason to have him act in the next Aquaman movie more like the Zack Snyder cut version, again, in my opinion.
Well, so Aquaman is the one character in the entire ensemble who feels most informed by the person who plays him. Mm-hmm. And that's fine with me. Aquaman's personality in the comics, if I had to boil it down to a single word, it would probably just be abrasive. And Momoa's Aquaman is pretty damn abrasive in this movie. But my favorite scene was with him in particular. It's just a tiny moment. It was right before they went to Steppenwolf's compound. And Aquaman asks Flash how Cyborg is doing after his dad has just passed away.
It's a great scene. It's a great scene.
I didn't think you cared. And he just goes, "I never said that." And I love that,
Dude, yeah.
He immediately feels the guilt that the League has caused Silas Stone's death and takes responsibility for that. But you kind of assume, if you don't know any better, you assume that he's like separating himself in a way that makes it seem like he doesn't care. But he's right; he didn't ever say that.
And I think that Jason Momoa is a solid actor. I mean, obviously, when you're acting these movies, you have to be good, right? Like, you can't just be a mediocre actor. So you got to have some, ability. And the characterization they chose to go with in the Joss Whedon version and in his own film just wasn't, in my opinion, the best way to do it. It worked out fine. I still like him because I think obviously Momoa is electric and so charismatic that doesn't really matter.
See,
but hold on. I love you. Really quick. But I will say that Aquaman in the Zack Snyder version, that scene in particular you brought up, I loved. It was such a great, like, I thought, acted moment that I'm like, man, like, Jason Momoa can deliver the goods. Like, he's a good, he can command a scene and not have to be like, yeah, what's up, brother? You know, he's not doing that. Like, he's actually, you know, he's not trying to, let's go grab a beer. You know, like, he's not doing that every 5 seconds. And again, they kind of bring up the whole, like, I'm a bar guy in the more so I felt in the movie than, whereas he's more just kind of an isolated kind of like loner in Joss Whedon's version. So I don't know. I thought that the scenes they gave him were so good, and he chewed up a lot of more reverent scenes, which that's a theme. That's a theme, my friend Chris. I'll let you go here after a second. Is reverence. Reverent Mr. Zack Snyder gives these characters. So go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry. I love you.
No, it's fine. I don't see an abundance of difference between the way that Aquaman is characterized in his solo film and the way he is in this, only because, well, I guess only in the sense that he clearly has more responsibility that he needs to accept, which is what his movie is all about.
Right.
But you do see in this one, and, you know, obviously the canonical connections between the director's cut of Justice League and Aquaman are tenuous at best. But if this was the movie that we had seen before we had seen Aquaman, then the idea of him stepping up to care is really, I guess, a piece of foreshadowing to the ultimate care that he would take up for his larger kingdom. So in general, the cinematic conception of Aquaman is one that I can really get behind.
Yeah.
You know, there's a straight adaptation from a character who already before, you know, 4 or 5 years ago had a lot of problems connecting with people. You're going to need some changes in there, and I'm okay with that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, he does a solid job being Aquaman, and seeing more of him in this was awesome.
So let's talk about something that I thought was really interesting. I talked a lot about, and I'm sure you did too, but I was too wrapped up in myself. Sorry, Chris. In the moment when we watched the movie, I kept saying, I want to see the theatrical version of Zack Snyder's Justice League, not the director's cut, not the Snyder cut.
You said that the movie we saw would have been the ultimate cut that got released later.
Right, like the BVS version.
The theatrical cut of this have looked like. That's what you said.
And I just kept saying that. I want to see that version because let's be real. And every review I've gone to, every single person has said the same thing. You could have easily made this 3 hours, probably. Not probably. You could very easily, and it'd still be almost the same exact movie. Just we cutting corners here, you know, trim this here. But again, I love the fact that it's completely up to Zack. Zack had complete control, and he got to do everything he wanted on it, which is awesome. So I don't want to take that away from him, but I do wish, and I do maybe hope we get some kind of theatrical like version of this where they put it out for the IMAX stuff, and we can see a shorter version of it. Because I'm not going to sit in an IMAX for 4 hours. I just don't have time for that, man. And which again sucks. I wish I did, but I don't. Maybe when I was like 18 years old, you know, I'm like, yeah, like Aquaman, and I could do it.
Like people who go to 25 movie MCU marathons, and it's like, do they have a shower there?
Okay, first of all, I don't begrudge. Listen, I don't judge anyone on anything for the most part.
No, it's not a matter of judgment. It's
I know.
You know,
but I'm just saying, for me, it's like I can't even handle watching 2 movies in a row back to back. Like I get bored. I'm too ADD for this stuff. I could like Star Wars, Marvel, all this stuff. I could watch it every day, whatever. But like, you asked me to watch it, like, you know, 3 movies in a row. I'm ready to like jump off a bridge. I'm like, I'm done. I just got to do something else. So anyway, I do wish and hope, and I think it's possible you could get some kind of shorter version, theatrical run, put it out in IMAX. I think people would go see it. I know I'd go see it. I know we'd go see it together, for God's sake.
I mean, it's a DC movie, and it's going to be in a theater. It's like that story of the scorpion and the frog. You know, it's in my nature. Of course, I'm going to go see a DC movie at the theater. But I wonder if it would piss too many people off if they said, here's the theatrical version of Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's an hour shorter.
Well,
why don't you release the whole thing?
Well, I mean, I think you can make it like a half hour shorter, and it would make it, again. Lord of the Rings is like whatever. Return of the King is like 3 hours long.
Oh yeah, I know.
I mean, just look at Return of the King and say, let's just emulate that exact runtime. You did 2 hours for the original Justice League. You can easily do that for Return of the King. Just put it out there and say this is the gold standard for long movies that are action packed and interesting, and you can just emulate that runtime and just stick there. And it made a lot of money. Go with it. But anyway, yeah, I think there is somewhere we're going to see maybe a potential version of that, but that's one thing we were robbed of. And I think that's, to me, that is like probably will be my favorite version of Justice League if it eventually does happen. Maybe not, but either way, I just think it.
So you think then you would like it more if it were shorter?
Not more. For me and be able to enjoy it on a regular basis, I need it to be shorter because it's so long. It's just so long. I mean, but again, and this is something that I think that was interesting about, one thing that I loved about this movie, and I don't want to paint the Snyderverse or Snyder Cut to be this like big deal in like for film. Because it is a comic, based off a comic book movie, or comic book, whatever, and the source material and all this yada, yada, yada and everything.
This happened to a comic book movie before. This almost exact scenario.
Right. But here's the thing. And I'm going to give movie. and I'm not, what I'm about to say is not something that's going to be like mind blowing or unique or whatever. But what's interesting and what Zack Snyder has done with this movie, which I find fascinating, which kind of reminds me a little bit of let's say a Quentin Tarantino movie. And hold on now, is he put it in chapters, not like, part 1, part 2. Like he puts it in chapters like a Tarantino movie. And all that was interesting. I'm like, okay. Or maybe other movies do it too. I like movies, but I'm not like a film.
Well, the nice thing about the way that this was released is that he knew ahead of time the medium that it would be released in, and it changes the relationship with the watching experience. If someone has the ability to stop it and start at another time because of its immense size, why not break it up? You're giving them clean breaks. That's what my wife and I did my first time watching it. We stopped it right after they decided that Superman needed to be resurrected. And it was a really clean break, and we picked it up the next day, and it was perfect, So it changes the relationship. You right. Watch a movie like this the same way you would in a theater.
Right. So this is one thing. So with all that said, what I think that Zack Snyder may have done, and in a good way, is kind of changed how we watch film in a sense to where you don't have to worry about runtime necessarily, because you're not necessarily going to be always releasing it into a theater right off the bat. Right. Or there's different ways to do it. Now, here's the deal. What he did was he put it in different chapters and he made it super long. Just like these other filmmakers like Tarantino or whatever. What's fascinating is that it's not a miniseries. This is not, and this is one thing I love the fact that Zack kind of fought for. It seems like he fought for a movie, not for a miniseries. They talked about it, and it could have worked as a miniseries, but it's a movie. You watch it all the way through. You can split it up in parts, like Chris said, but it's kind of like that binge model without having to like spend your whole weekend watching Daredevil, from start to finish. You can actually sit down, take a break, and finish it up on the next time, or split up in 3 different parts. You can do it you can basically watch the movie a bunch of different ways, which is really fascinating. And that can maybe change how people or how Hollywood deals with these movies going forward on streaming services. Instead of saying you get a runtime of this much and that's it, or whatever. It's now, hey, you have your vision. This is how much money you're going to get. You can go ham if you want. You can do whatever and just go with it and just see what happens. And I think that's what Zack has done, is he's kind of emphasized the idea that you can have long movies again, like really long movies, and you can watch them many different ways. Split it up all at once. It's an intermission like our boy Ryan Haas brought up. But that's what I think is very fascinating about this, is that it kind of brings up the idea of the creativity of what you can do in film going forward. And again, maybe I'm overstating it. I don't know. So, but
well,
yeah.
I mean, streaming has changed the way we watch movies.
Well, of course.
I don't know if I would necessarily give that much credit to Snyder in terms of altering the watching experience, but I do give him credit for understanding the experience that the movie would be delivered to people and catering it to that. Right. Because
Dennis, hold on, Dennis, I'm gonna address this. Don't worry. Continue.
Oh yeah, he is.
Yeah. I've got something for you, Dennis. Don't you worry.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'll just thank you for the comment. I'll keep that in mind. Thank you, Garrett. I'll come back to that. But the relation. Oh, damn it, Ryan. I'll address that too.
Ryan, stop getting ahead of yourself. Okay, come on. We've only got crap. We're spending way too much time on this.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about
a lot, dude. We got a lot.
I picked out so many comic books. But anyway,
yes.
Understanding that it's going to be delivered in a streaming medium probably played a pretty big role in the presentation of the movie. Did a good job in catering it to that. Did a better job than Marty Scorsese did with The Irishman. I feel like
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, The Irishman might have been a little bit more, if it was a little more segmented, it would have been a better watching. I like that movie. I thought that was a good movie. I need to see it. I liked the chapter breakup of Justice League. I thought that was
solid. I love it. Dude, the chapter breakup of Justice League was, I think, it's been an unsung hero to the movie. Maybe it is more than I realized, but I feel like that is such a great idea. I think it's awesome. I love it. I love that how it's like certain things like, this little title here, Not Today Batman or whatever that the first one, part 1 is. I love that. That was great. So
don't count on it, Batman.
Yeah, don't count on it, Batman. Thank you. So I loved it. We have to move on. We've got to move on.
Here, let me address the 2 questions that I got to Garrett and Ryan. So
all right, go ahead.
Garrett, difference between theatrical Superman and director's cut Superman, not as much of a difference as I thought there would be. And I was pleased to see that. Would have been nice to see some more banter with the team because we didn't get that like we did in the theatrical version. But overall, the face thing didn't bug me as much as it bugged a lot of other people. As soon as I knew it was going to be bad, I was just kind of able to compartmentalize it and move on. So I like Superman quite a bit in the theatrical cut, but since the greater amount of stoicism in the Snyder version was balanced out with a greater look at his humanity. I think someone mentioned before you would never in a theatrical version get Superman playing with a butterfly. I like that. And him talking about Smallville, him talking about his relationship, you got more of that. That balanced things out for me. When it comes to the black suit, Ryan, I agree with you. Yeah, I thought he should have been back in his primary colors. For some reason, having anti-life corrupted Superman in his primary colors, but heroic Superman in the black suit, I thought that should have been switched. Even though we saw a flash forward to a nightmare sequence in BVS, he altered the suit to be black in post anyway. On set, he was in the traditional suit. So
was that really? It was already.
It was the traditional suit. They altered it to be the black suit. They might have shot some stuff with him in the black suit, but all of the footage that you see of them shooting those scenes, like at the end, he's in the traditional suit. And those were the scenes that they used in the theatrical cut. When he does the shirt rip, it's the regular colors, and they changed it for this. So is what it is. I would have preferred the actual colors at the end of the day because
I know you.
That would have punctuated his return that much more for me. But it's a personal preference and it's a minor gripe in comparison with a 4-hour movie. So I understand that.
All right. So for people who are wondering that people are asking for me and Sean's opinion of this, I I've got a nice little surprise for everyone. Our good friend Sean has decided to join us. I'm very happy. Sean Gerber.
Hey guys, gentlemen.
What a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, it's the road to WrestleMania, so I got to do a run-in whenever I can. So
you just got off the fast lane and now you're
just had to do it. If only I had the Ultimate Warrior music queued up, which did show up like randomly on my iPhone this morning. It's just like songs that were playing through for every song I had on my phone.
Well, that's
and of course that's there. So I was pretty juiced up for a run-in.
Yeah. So now, Sean, I think I avoided everyone's, including everybody's reviews of this movie, and I don't know what I didn't even ask you on Friday when we did our Falcon Winter Soldier stuff. I mean, I'm almost afraid to ask. And I know you're not the biggest fan of VVS. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
What's your take on the Snyder Cut? I gotta hear it.
I liked it.
No way, you did?
Yeah, I liked it. I don't.
All right.
I tried to tell people going into this, you can't know which way I'm going to go. I don't know which way I'm going to go because I'm 50-50 on Zack Snyder going into this. I liked Man of Steel, didn't like BVS. So I didn't want to just assume that I wouldn't like it. I have issues, of course. Obviously, it's 4 hours of movie. You're not gonna.
It's a lot.
You're not gonna nail it for 4 hours, but it was a lot more hits than misses for me. I still think outside of the final battle, Superman is kind of wasted. Sorry, I also, boy, oh boy, like I can't have that dude moping around when it's already hit the fan and everybody's got to go stop Steppenwolf. Like, this is not for you to be on your journey of self-discovery. Like, get in there, dude. Outside of setting up his dramatic entrance, the rest of it worked for me. Although I can confidently state that I have no interest in seeing what happens next. So if they really hold on to that line of not restoring the Snyderverse, I'm fine with that. Or I should specify, I'm all about watching the Justice League versus Darkseid. I am not up for the Justice League versus Superman again just because Lois Lane died. No, thank you. I'm good.
Yeah.
And if anybody thinks that this is all goodwill for Zack Snyder, that everything would just be peachy keen from this point forward, if they make that story, it's going to be just as polarizing as BVS was. So I'm all with Warner not continuing on with that.
Yeah,
it's the right call.
No, I think that the one thing I would say, like you said it best, I'm all for Darkseid versus the Justice League. And I think that's the thing that this movie did a great job of, is showing you the power and the awesomeness of the fourth world and Apocalypse and all that stuff. You've opened the door and you've shown how amazing Darkseid can look when you give, some great designers and pay some money into that and all that, whatever. It looks phenomenal. And I so badly wanted Darkseid and then to throw down. And it was a bummer we didn't get it. But I'm with you on that. The fact that some of the stuff we heard about, I was like, not really super into that. Like, again, Zack Snyder's story decisions aren't always my favorite, but I at least give him credit to where at least with this trilogy specifically, I liked the story he was telling, the long game. It wasn't always what everyone wanted to see necessarily in the short game, but I think in the long game, it all had it was a pretty cool, I think, in my opinion, a pretty cool story. Because I liked the idea of a Batman who had to rediscover himself. Again, not everyone loves that. I liked it.
Right.
Again, I get it. But for me, it worked because some people, again, I don't like the Dark Knight Rises character or the third part of Batman. But again, I like this version. So it's apples, everyone likes their own thing. So with all that said, this trilogy specifically, which is really weird to think about this as a trilogy. You have a solo film, a team up film, and then a mega team film. It's weird to think about it in a trilogy that way, because that's not really the conventional way to do it, but this is what we got. And so I don't know. I loved so much about this that I'm like, I could see it continuing, but not necessarily the same way that, how about this? I think the DCEU will continue taking all the great stuff from this version of Zack Snyder's Justice League without having to reference it completely, like a Steppenwolf. Like I envision the next, like a Justice League 2, that it's the theatrical version of Steppenwolf, right? And he's still alive, and then he dies in the first like 10 minutes. Like they just chop his head off and say he's worthless. Like it's kind of like a meta thing of being like you're gone in this, and you get rid of him, and then you have Darkseid, just that version of Darkseid there, just destroying things and laying waste. So I feel that you could do that, and I think it'd go over fairly well. So I don't know. I'm curious. Go ahead, Sean.
Well, no, if Zack Snyder is willing to give up on the idea of, if he's willing to give up on this idea of Darkseid or Superman turning evil, succumbing to the anti-life equation for Darkseid just because of the, the death of Lois Lane, or not just because. I mean, I know Lois is important, but Superman's bigger than that. So if he's willing to let go of that plot, I mean, those are the things, but that's the interaction that studio executives and producers are supposed to have with filmmakers anyway. Like, hey, that one seems like a bad idea that not enough people are really interested in, but everybody really likes this. Everybody really loves this team together, and they want to see this showdown with Darkseid. Ready the Armada. We do this the old ways. Like, go do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And also too, the thing with Lois we've seen before. It's a prominent component of another really major adaptation with the DC characters, albeit in an interactive medium. But the Injustice games, the premise is that Superman himself is led to kill Lois Lane and becomes a despot as a result. Watching the movie, I wonder if this is like a consciousness question. If I'm watching the movie for the first time, I wonder if my knowing that this is the last stop made me just kind of go, oh yeah, that stuff happens, because I'm not crazy about the idea of Lois being killed either, especially unless, and I don't think this is where he was going to go, if the third Justice League movie was all about stopping that from happening, maybe. But actually having it happen where Superman is corrupted by the equation and there's an out-and-out conflict, as was alluded to in the last scene of this. No. Superman, I've told both of you guys this so many times. I mean, needing the feeling like Superman is a character that needs to be fixed or given a harder edge. If someone goes into a production with Superman with that supposition in their mind, that's already a problem. I don't need that.
Yeah, I'm over this idea of treating Superman like someone or something that needs to be feared all the time. I get it, and it was a valid take in Man of Steel.
Agreed.
That the emergence of something like this would, a being such as Superman would scare people. I was fine with that take. I think it was valid, but I think we've been through it now, and the point of it is to come out on the other side, and now let's present new challenges.
That forks, because one of my favorite parts of the director's cut of this movie, though, I love the idea of people who are good knowing that Superman is your best friend. If you're bad, he's your worst enemy.
Right.
And the thing that was emphasized about the scene where they say they were afraid of him, I loved that, because they should be. Those are the exact kinds of beings, evil beings bent on the subjugation of existence. Those kinds of beings should be afraid of Superman, and him flexing his muscle to scare them. Totally fine with me. It's like, in Last Son, the John's Donner story in action. I love the juxtaposition of him meeting the child that he would come to name Christopher. And he's like, okay, you can go to sleep. I promise I'll be here when you fall asleep, and I will be here when you wake up. And then as soon as he finds out that the army took him away, he grabs a tank and throws it through a steel door and picks up the officer by the scruff of his neck, and his eyes are glowing. And he says, "Where is he?" You hurt a kid, or you think there's a perception of a kid being hurt. Superman's going to be a terrible nightmare for you. But for a child who's scared in a new place, he's your best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Sean, I know there's things to nitpick about it, but what I want to really ask you, what did you like about this a lot? Because you said you liked it, so yeah. So what did you like, love, or like, or give me the juice here. I'm curious.
You guys hit on one of the moments I really loved. Chris quoted it with Aquaman. The whole "I didn't know you cared, and I never said that," which that said way more than Aquaman sitting on a lasso in the theatrical cut. And because to me, it's the simplicity of it that actually makes it so much more meaningful. And so that moment, and just Aquaman in general, I thought was really great. I liked. This is my. I mean, not that the bar wasn't high, but this is my favorite Ben Affleck Batman for sure. I like that there was genuine character development here, and I know the theatrical cut was presenting it, but it did it in such a way that was so corny that it didn't feel like him anymore. And I think, which Batman's allowed to be corny, but there's a way to do it. See Batman the Brave and the Bold, or Batman, Adam West. So I think that with Batman, I like this idea of him. He's a guy who's pretty familiar with feelings of guilt. And so I like this idea that after everything, all the mistakes he made in Batman v Superman, that you really felt the sense of urgency in his mission, and also the sense of having some making up to do to go out and bring this team together. And the fact that it wasn't easy and bringing them all together, I thought was really great. And then, I mean, Cyborg, I think, has to be the big win of the movie. This is one of the great, you could call it an origin story wrapped up within the team up ensemble film, thanks to the flashback that we get of it. I thought Ray Fisher was great, and I thought everything they did with the way they handled and characterized Cyborg, I thought was on the money. So I just found myself enjoying these characters, which, if I can at least enjoy who these people are and the trials that they're going through and experiencing, like I'm not. May shock people. I'm not that tough of a sell for superhero stories. Like, I'm just not. It's not Marvel or DC. Historically, I'm more inclined to like any superhero movie than not like any superhero movie. I tend to like most of them. And so this was, although this doesn't, work only in that respect, I felt like the character arcs were compelling. The overall story worked. There's definitely about easily like 45 to an hour that can be cut out of this if you were going to make a theatrical cut. But even then, it's 4 hours on my couch with HBO Max. So, and Zack Snyder waited long enough. So if he wants to indulge and throw in everything he wanted in this cut, who am I to say he shouldn't? Not sitting in a theater. If I were sitting in a theater, I would say he should make cuts. But
right.
You're sitting in a theater, then you go, and my ass hurts.
Yeah, exactly.
You can get up and walk around.
Yeah, when I'm in my own well-defined ass groove, you can. The movie can be 4 hours long.
I'm not sure if you heard this part. I told everyone that I probably peed 50 times during this movie, like because Sean knows how often I have the bladder of a toddler, and basically I think during this 4 hour period, because we watched the whole thing all when me and Chris did, 50 times. So you can appreciate that when we do a podcast.
Oh yeah, the BRBs all day.
BRBs. Like Sean gets at least like 2-3 of them on BRB. Like, hold on a second, and he just keeps going. And I'm just like, okay, I'm back. And it just But I totally get it. If this was a movie in a theater and it's 4 hours long, it would be, it'd be rough. I can make it. I've done marathons before, so I can do the 4 hours. But I would say there are definitely things that could be cut. Aquaman going back and saving the fisherman. I don't really need that. I don't need the Icelandic singing, unless as he was walking off into the water, they were singing Ya Ya Ding Dong for my Eurovision fans. So if they were doing that, then we're all good. Paul, beyond that though, it's there's plenty of things to cut. And the last half hour really is a commercial for the next movie that may or may not ever be made. Yeah, that's true.
And I could have done with that. I don't really know why anybody's fanning out over the Batman and Joker interaction. I thought it was terrible. I laughed out loud at it, especially when Batman dropped his F-bomb because it was so forced. I haven't heard an F-bomb that forced since Dick Grayson on Titan said F Batman. I just haven't seen. It's just so bad.
Funny, what do these things have in common?
It's the seventh grade mentality of using the F word like you just got brave enough to use it. That's it. it's a great word, but you know,
it is an extraordinarily
with great
versatile
power,
word.
there must also come great responsibility.
There are so many applications of the word. There have been dissertations written about that, but yeah, I mean, I didn't need to. It wasn't on my bucket list for life to hear Batman say, "I'll kill you."
I mean, it's fine if you have it, but do it better. Ultimately, it's just a dream anyway.
I mean, the scene was interesting. I'll give it that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
Leto seemed more reserved this time, which I appreciated. But I also have seen people try to compare it to the interrogation room, and that I don't understand.
No.
Not even close.
That's not a serious adult conversation.
No,
that's
it seems like the blinders are just too far up by that point.
That's not an idea I'm even remotely interested in entertaining. If you feel that way, great. I strongly disagree with that, but hey, if it's your favorite Batman and Joker interaction, I can't argue with your favorites.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. I agree with you there. The last scene was fine for me, but I didn't need it. You could have ended it on just other stuff. But like you said, you guys were saying you're trying to set up something maybe afterwards. I mean, I know they went out and said we're not going to do a sequel, blah blah blah, and I think I for the most part believe it, but I think that it just
I think Zack Snyder. It was somewhere in an interview. I think he pretty much admitted it that because this was an addition. This was new stuff that they filmed. This is not. This is not part of the Snyder Cut in the sense that this is not what was left on the cutting room floor in favor of, what they strung together in 2017. This was new stuff. And this was Zack Snyder saying, I only get to do this once and I probably never get to do this again. So I want to have my Batman and Joker interaction. So that's why he did it. That's where I almost wish that they had told him, well, if it works, maybe you get to do another one. Then he would have left this part out. I'm all for, because this is why another reason I don't like it is it gets in the way of what's really good in this movie. And what's really good in this movie is like the impending arrival of Darkseid. That is one of the coolest things about this movie, because Steppenwolf as villains go is not any more interesting to me in this cut than he was in the theatrical cut. Like, he looks better.
I think he
looks better, but it's the same plot for him. Boo hoo hoo. Darkseid kicked me out of the clubhouse. I want back in. So, and which is fine. Like, I'm okay with that. But the reason why this works and why just the Snyder Cut doesn't have a villain problem is because Steppenwolf is buoyed by Darkseid the entire time. Basically Darkseid is the villain and Steppenwolf is just acting on his behalf. And he's just this stepping stone to get to Darkseid. And I'm all about that next step. And if they want to hype that up, I'm totally cool with it. I don't need I definitely don't need the Batman and Joker thing. You could even cut the Lex Luthor Deathstroke thing. I know that means a lot to people who, for the Batman that didn't happen and all of that, but we know it's not happening. It's never happening. But Justice League versus Darkseid, there's a case to be made for that story being told. So anything that focuses on that, I'm all for.
Yeah. Steppenwolf, the thing that I thought that he did a really great job of, and the thing that I was hoping would get across in any story that features Apocalypse, is just how scary that blind loyalty is. Because I mean, Darkseid's entire existence throughout his whole history has been about replacing individual will with his and having absolute control of everything.
Right.
And when you have that kind of absolute control coupled with the power that he has, it's horrific. And the power of belief is something that you get far more from Steppenwolf in this version of the movie compared with the last one.
That's fair.
You just got he's a guy on the outs. He said they recycled the For Darkseid line and put it in a different place in the theatrical version of the movie. But now when you see those direct interactions with Desaad, and he's virtually begging to get back into the fold of the hierarchy on Apocalypse.
Yeah.
There was a significantly more there to satisfy me in my thirst for seeing more from Apocalypse. But Paul.
Yes, sir.
If you don't get to the Icelandic singing now,
okay,
get to
I will. But before, so I'm gonna go to the Icelandic scene real fast.
Yep.
And then
play Ya Ding Dong.
Yeah, it's fine. And then we're gonna talk about. I'll talk about the music for a second. Then we're gonna talk about this, and then we're gonna talk about comics, and we'll wrap it up. So first of all, I know everyone hates the Icelandic scene or with the girls singing. I get it. I actually loved it. I didn't think I was going to because everyone was ripping it. I'm like, oh man, here it comes, or it's coming somewhere. And I actually really liked it because it emphasizes the idea that these people are gods. These idea that these people are more than what the superheroes in the small little town has seen the Aquaman go in and has saved people and demonstrated these godlike abilities, and they are worshipped to an extent. And I thought that was a nice way to kind of bring in the idea that, yeah, not everywhere is like us, where we have like internet and all this stuff. It's a small little town, barely anything there, and they worship this person. There was that idea that, again, they're all that whole godlike deity things that with Superman, again, those storylines are going through the 3 films. I really like that. I know it's ridiculous. I know people don't like singing or a cappella singing and things like that. I get it. And it is awkward because we're not used to hearing it. But I grew up, going to church a lot, and I heard singing all the time about all kinds of stuff. So it didn't really bother me. And I liked it because it reinforced the idea that these people like have seen the Aquaman perform these amazing feats, and they don't just be like, they'll just see him like drink and go, oh, it's that guy. It's like they hold this reverence to him, which again, it's missing in the theatrical version, not just of Aquaman, but everybody. So I just want to say that, like, I understand why people don't like it. That's why I like it. And I know a lot of people are, bad mouthing it. And I get it. I understand completely. You could have cut it out. I get it. I liked it. And the last thing I want to say about the music, I love the fact that Zack Snyder just will play the most random music that is so anti-big blockbuster. Like, I love when you compare the scene between the theatrical version, which is the White Stripes playing, which I like that song, good, solid, rock song, playing. It works. And then you have the Snyder Cut version, which is Nick Cave in the Bad Seeds, which is a piano. It's like, oh my God, I love it. I love the fact that he's like, no, I'm going to artsy it up and I'm going to put Nick Cave in it. It's like, it's bonkers to me. I love that. Yeah. And as a music person, I really appreciated that because Zach, put Leonard Cohen in the trailer. The real Hallelujah song. I love Leonard Cohen. So I was like, dude, Zach's a pimp. I love it.
You already used that in Watchmen though, right?
Well, he used he used it. Yeah, he did use it in Watchmen.
I think he said that it was one of his daughter's favorite songs.
Yeah, he did. So I'm fine with it.
No, I love his version. I love it's a beautiful song. Leonard Cohen's one of the best songwriters of all time. Go buy the greatest hits, go listen on Spotify or whatever, and just go listen to like So Long Marianne and all that stuff. Like, and you don't have to like the music, read the lyrics, dude. There's brilliant lines in it. Anyway, I just want to talk about the music for a second. And then what was I going to say after that? What do we want to talk about, Chris? I forgot. Crap.
Anyway, offer a rebuttal on the Icelandic singing?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I definitely take the point of this is Zack Snyder's vision of DC, which is that they are gods, right? The modern myths, godlike figures, as opposed to more real world people of Marvel or whatever. Yeah. So, and I'm fine with that. That's how a lot of people have interpreted DC over the years. I've never really found Marvel and DC as inherently different as others seem to, but regardless, that's a valid take and I'm okay with it. But I feel like he's already achieving that in so many other places with the chorus that's part of the score. It's already happening so many other places. And where I don't like it with Aquaman, it's not just because the singing is a little weird and awkward. It's not his energy. Like, you've built this persona of Jason Momoa's Aquaman as, some people don't like it, but the surfer bro, whatever you want to call it. Although I still wouldn't even call it that. I would just call it Jason Momoa. And so you've brought in that energy and his character is taking on a lot of that energy, but that isn't it, and I feel like if that Aquaman ever heard them singing that, he'd be like, what the F are you doing?
Well, yeah,
guys, that's not my speed. Like that's not my jam.
He'd be like, yeah, come on, do it.
Yeah. So like, I feel like, he would like go swim and throw him like some electric guitars. Like, he'd figure something out. So that's where it's, to me, like, I don't care, whatever, like, you can cut it out. But really it doesn't fit his character to be doing that. The overall theme of them being gods, sure. But Aquaman's energy is a little different than that is tonal, or a lot different than that is tonally.
No, and I agree with that. And I think that's why I loved this characterization of Aquaman. It's because it is different than the other films. And I felt it connected more to this version of Aquaman. Like, I agree with you that doesn't fit the energy completely. But again, I think he's also separated from that town. Like, he's not.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think, yeah, both are.
I mean, like, there is some sense of ownership they have. Like, they protect him, his identity and everything.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like there's a bond there. And so I would love to see them kind of taking on more of his attitude and spirit and energy, as opposed to just whatever their normal thing is for worshiping folks.
That'd be rad if they did have like just all of a sudden like some like big old butt rock like thing there, instead of her singing the Icelandic song, like Bon Jovi, like living on a prayer. Like, it was like doing like this to him, and he's just like,
yeah,
what's up? Okay, before we get into the comics, we gotta talk about the scene, and Ryan Haas brought it up, and I haven't even talked to like Chris about it, and I'm curious what you think too, Sean, is the ending scene with the Flash. And now, really quickly, and we can talk about the Flash for a minute too. I loved Ezra Miller in this movie way more than I was anticipating. And again, just this movie alone, not outside of the movie or what goes on in real life and things like that. This movie itself, I really liked his performance. I liked the downplaying of his character as far as like the big joking stuff. I mean, there is stuff there still, obviously, but I like, again, Resurrection of Superman was incredible. I was like, and we haven't got to Cyborg yet. God, it's going to go forever. But no, we're still hour and a half. I'm committed to it. But I think one thing I was not anticipating was how good the Flash sequence was at the very end. And I'm curious your guys' thoughts. Sean, you can go ahead and go first here. What was your take? I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. And I kind of an underrated, like, wow, this is like a pretty rad moment. Might be an old timer. Honestly, I thought it was great.
We're talking about him going back in time and all
back
that.
In time. Yeah.
I was fine with it. I mean, I feel like it kind of sets things up for what presumably happens next with the Flash, and tapping into the Speed Force and time travel and those types of things. So from a universe building sort of thing, like, I liked it, and visually I thought it looked very interesting. I don't really have I don't have an issue with it. I wouldn't say I'm like over the moon in love with it.
Okay.
It's not like some all-time superhero cinematic moment for me, but I liked it, and I don't have a problem with it. So I don't know where a problem would come into it.
Sure. Chris, what's your take on that scene? Because I know we both talked about it a little bit when we watched it together. We both dug it, right?
Oh, I liked it a lot. Yeah. And I think I liked it a lot. Well, first of all, because I've been saying now, I feel like it's been 84 years, but I feel like I've been saying that the Flash has needed a movie for so long that any real service that you can give to this character in this world, like, the show is great. I like Grant Gustin quite a bit as the character. I mean, individual episodes, we can get into a whole thing, but
there's too many. Hung out.
It's one really great season of Flash television.
There you go. The Flash has needed a movie for a long time. So, I mean, they used a lot of stuff that I would have expected to get into in like Flash 3 in a movie in this one scene.
Yeah.
That being said, if you're going to go for broke, and if you're going to try and show the full capacity of his power, then that's a really effective way of doing it. And some of the moments of drama in that struck me a little like they were a little overwrought, but it was visually spectacular. And we'd never really seen Speed depicted that way in a comic book movie before. So I was a big fan of it.
You asked me, Chris, what I prefer, because I think you asked me what I preferred, the way that Quicksilver was presented in Days of Future Past, or how this was. And I'm like, I brought the comment, like, not the Marvel versus DC aspect, but I feel like they're I like the fact they are different. I don't prefer one or the other, right? I like the fact that they are distinctly, here's like a Marvel version of the Speedster, here's a DC version of the Speedster. I thought that was really cool.
The crackling, the crackling is a nice visual cue that has existed in the comics before in some cases. I don't think it's ever been necessarily, I mean, this is a totally wrong word, but I think you guys get what I mean by saying it. I don't know if it's necessarily a diegetic component of the Flash as he moves around, like it's something that other people sees. It might just be artistic visual flair on the page, but incorporating that into the visual language of the Flash doing his thing, I think is a cool idea. And look, the thing in Days of Future Past was also visually spectacular, but it was also awesome. It had a very different kind of tone to it as well.
Right.
And I don't. My history with Quicksilver isn't very large. I see him in Avengers stories going back decades, but I haven't like gone for the full Quicksilver bibliography. My perception. All right. Well,
you don't need to.
My perception is that I made this joke when I was watching it, and Paul's going to roll his eyes. But there are so many episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation where the ship would blow up if they didn't have Data as a part of the crew. And there are a lot of instances that I've read and watched where the Justice League would have been totally obliterated had it not been for the Flash. He is that powerful. He is arguably the most powerful member of the team. Mm-hmm. So seeing that given service was great for me.
Yeah.
So
my only knock on it is that I do think it went on too long. Not the reversing time part, but the failure went on too long.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I was like, that can be
you
trimmed
could have gotten
down
to the point faster. Yeah,
well, because there's like a long time where it's like, this is the moment and like not there and it's not syncing up and working. And I'm like, boy, this is going on for a long time for somebody so fast, even with slow-mo. But no, I also, I do like the way, I mean, and this was already kind of established in the theatrical cut, but I think it's more pronounced in this and it's showcased a lot more is I do kind of like the way he runs, which is not a normal running motion. It's almost like he's just flowing through the Speed Force. There's almost like a swim technique that's going along with the running, which is just him kind of, manipulating the flow of the Speed Force and also kind of bending to it as much as he can. Like it's not running, which is not me saying Ezra Miller doesn't know how to run. It really is like, I think there is a genuine purpose for it and that's also something that's very, very different. Normally super speed, it's a normal running motion that's just sped up or slowed down. But it treats Flash's movement as being something different visually. And I like that.
Which makes sense because if his shoes are going to explode and if it affected his bones that way, they would probably explode too. So that's a really good way of putting it. I hadn't considered that.
Yeah. And let's get, before we get into the comic section real fast, let's talk about Cyborg, because I left the theatrical version, like probably many people being like, whatever.
We could use Cyborg to start talking about the comics.
No, that's great. That's good point. So with Cyborg, I totally like way appreciated the fact that they had so much more to use for this character, and I loved it. I love how and everything about him was so much better, and I can totally see why Ray Fisher is a little bitter about stuff, because I think if you look at the sewer moment by itself, where the theatrical version, when he first shows up, it's like, I can't stop it. It's just going without me. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, whatever. It's Steppenwolf is going to hurt his dad. And it's like, I can't help it. It's good. Instead he like full on, like just goes and saves his dad. Like,
yep.
It's so much better. It's so much better. Like, how do you write that out? It baffles me. You would do that. So just, and I'll just I'll throw it to you guys here in a second, but I really like that. And everything about Cyborg in this movie was just so much better. And I loved it. And I love the character way more now. And I'm really disappointed that Ray Fisher is not going to have, sorry, my dog's drinking, is going to be doing this more. And I'm just bummed. I'm just really disappointed. Sean, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I won't add too much onto what I said earlier. I mean, I think Cyborg might be my favorite part of this whole movie. And I think I think Cyborg is probably the greatest achievement of this movie from a storytelling perspective. I think, I mean, he's the one character who has, I would say, a very complete start to finish arc. And it helps that he has an origin story wrapped up in the middle of this, but everything that he's dealing with, from his response to what's happened to him all the way through to the end, and embracing who he is. And of course, being, faced with that ultimate test of, giving in inside the mother box and just, existing in happiness that's fake, or accepting his losses and moving on, and moving forward and helping to save the world. Just all of that was great. And so certainly when you think about the theatrical cut of Justice League, it is a how dare you? Like, how could you possibly cut this? Like, this is great material. If there are other things you want to cut them. But like, cutting this just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, this was your movie right here. Was the story with Vic Stone, aka Cyborg, and I think it worked tremendously well, and was definitely the most enjoyable part of the movie for me. On top of, no, which is not to say it was the only one, and loved a lot of things about this, but Cyborg was easily my favorite, and I certainly understand. I mean, obviously, there's plenty of other things, that go into the Ray Fisher situation and everything that's gone on between him and Warner, which is a whole other conversation unto itself.
Yes.
A whole other podcast. But just if we're just looking at the creative, that all by itself is more than enough reason for Ray Fisher to be really upset, because like that was golden material that he gave them, and obviously Zack Snyder and Chris Terrio, and they just threw it away.
Yeah, exactly. Chris, you want to add to this and we'll move on to the comics real quick?
I don't think there's anything more than I can add other than Sean is right.
As he usually is.
No, I mean, Cyborg as a member of the Justice League is a relatively recent innovation in terms of the character's history. But when I was reading Teen Titans on a regular basis, in the Teen Titans series I jumped into, he was already serving as kind of a mentor to the other characters. So having him graduate up to the League when that was actually made official was very natural in terms of my understanding of who this guy was and what he could bring to the table. The movie did a really good job of showcasing how his particular power set is more relevant now than it probably ever has been. Yeah. The scene with the single mother is a really great addition to this movie, as far as I'm concerned. It was one of those moments of humanity and his starting to understand how he could affect the world around him that I'd frankly missed from the other Snyder movies. I'm glad that this was here when it was, because it helps to emphasize this is a good dude, and he deserves to stand alongside the other heroes of the world. And I loved what Silas Stone was saying while he was doing those things. The struggle is going to be not doing. Yeah. And I thought that was a really excellently written and impeccably performed scene. And you just get more and more of those from Ray Fisher, especially, and from Joe Morton. I really like Joe Morton as an actor. Yes. I have ever since I saw Terminator 2. Yep. So his addition here was really solid, and more of that stuff that we got here was terrific, and it made the movie. It really
one of the best movie deaths of all time, Joe Morton.
There you go, man.
Yeah. So, so with the comic binge, Sean came in. I'm really glad that he hung out with us, and we usually try to go deeper in the comics. So we'll just kind of touch on it before we leave. I'll kind of throw it to you too, Sean. Think about just kind of some comic where do people go after they watch this movie? Because one thing we've talked about on the Marvel podcast so much is that we wish these movies did a better job, or these companies, I should say, a better job of promoting these comic books. Let's give people a reason and where to go for these comic books, because these are the reasons why we watch these movies in the first place initially, or we did originally, because we love the comic books. And so I just, so kind of before I'll give you some time to think about it if you have for a minute here, but just want to briefly talk about the comic books a little bit. And I want to bring up this really quick. I'm going to do a little audible, Chris. This is a comic book that I grew up always wanting to read, and I didn't read it for a long time. This is Grant Morrison's JLA, and this was coming out when I was collecting comic books on a regular basis, back when in the mid 90s. And I remember being kind of jealous when they came out with it, because it was a big deal, because the JLA before was like this floundering team for so long after the death of Superman, and just had a bunch of like D-listers, they had the whole, this is after obviously Justice League Detroit, all that stuff. But this Grant Morrison brought back like the Justice League.
He united the seven.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I just this was a big deal. And I always think about, this is a good run to start on, which I know, whatever is what we're going to talk about in a second too. But I just wanted to say, like, this was a big deal for me. I remember I got this at a Half Price Books like years later, but this is like a big memory of mine of the Justice League. And I always will think of this comic book and this cover specifically when I think of the Justice League, is this comic by itself. The story is kind of bonkers, to be quite honest. It's like them fighting aliens, like powerful, like angelic demon aliens. It's bonkers. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. And
that first story is New World Order, by the way.
God. And then this is something from Chris. Chris, you wanted to bring this up, and I actually own the trade of this. This is Rock. Can't really see it very well. Sorry. This is Rock of Ages. So we want to talk about this as this is a good thing to jump on after you watch the Snyder Cut. Why is that?
Yeah. So I was trying to think of back when the Nightmare first showed up in BVS, the immediate comparison that I drew was just to Crisis, because the Flash showing up and giving a vision to Batman is just kind of ripped straight from Crisis. But this version of the movie really did make me think of Rock of Ages, because this is a story where about halfway through it, a little less than halfway through it, a few heroes of the Justice League get they try to save the Philosopher's Stone from being destroyed, because if it gets destroyed, then Lex Luthor is going to basically help facilitate the conquering of Earth by Darkseid. They try to travel through time. They end up 15 years late. Everything's already happened. Darkseid is in control of the planet. And the Nightmare stuff really does seem... Earth looks in worse shape in the Nightmare. But in terms of kind of the broad strokes of the Justice League having to react and respond to a world that's under Darkseid's control, Rock of Ages is a really good story. There's some great Batman moments. There's some great Atom moments in it. You actually see what looks like it could be the death of Darkseid in this story. It doesn't really work out that way. Obviously, well, it might work out for that timeline, but it's full of Grant Morrison craziness, and it's also just the world under Darkseid's.
Everything counts.
Well, yeah.
As far as we know, right?
It also kind of leads into DC 1 Million, which I think is kind of an underrated story. But Rock of Ages is a really solid Justice League story, regardless.
No, and also I have the trade. I haven't read it yet. I had it for like 20 years. It also has the blue Superman costume. I've heard that this is the best use of the blue Superman costume, even outside of even with his own book. It's still better than that.
It was in continuity main DC team book, so Morrison had to react and respond to what was happening in the other titles, and he grabbed hold of the Superman blue concept and did some pretty awesome things with it, all things considered. Right. Still not Superman's greatest era, but you can't complain too much about Morrison making good use of it.
It's true. It's true. Sean, do you have any? I mean, you're a big DC guy, obviously.
Yeah.
Besides Marvel, I mean, I know that because
Contrary to what the internet thinks, contrary
to
some DC.
Exactly. So, what kind of DC books do you recommend for people to read after the Snyder Cut?
I mean, I think if you're looking for like early Cyborg Justice League, then you go to the New 52, and you get Jim Lee Justice League. So, I mean, the art is great. And I love a lot of the storytelling by Jeff Johns. And of course, I know with Ray Fisher and that history with Jeff Johns, maybe you don't go there.
Maybe not.
But so I understand if somebody takes a pass on that. But another one that I would recommend, it's not really Justice League, but I want to recommend like one of the most fun Batman and Superman comics ever, which is Superman/Batman by Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness. The first volume was Public Enemies, so that's them versus like President Lex Luthor, and it kind of goes on from there. But that I just think if you want to get into comics, and if you're maybe somebody who's not been historically as into them, everybody can rattle off the list of like the quote unquote must reads of Batman and Superman and everything like that. But if you just want something that you can just rip into and like have a lot of fun with, I think this is one of the most fun, like Batman and Superman team up books and sets of stories that you can have. And you don't really need to know a whole lot going into it. If you've got a general sense of who these characters are, I think there's a really great entry point where maybe you find other avenues that you want to go down from there. But if you're looking for a jump in comic, I think Superman Batman by Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness is a great starting point.
That's what Supergirl, right?
So I want to jump on that because
please.
So I wrote a shitload of comic books down in this.
You said those SH words, sir. You cannot say that on YouTube.
I can't.
Not. No, I have no idea.
I'm just going by podcast rules, man.
Whatever. Okay, I don't
anyway, I want to jump off of Sean's recommendation because the story that I picked out of Superman, Batman, and the stuff that I was going to recommend was Supergirl, which is issues 8 through 13 of Superman, Batman. And I specifically wanted to recommend that because there is some really terrific facing off between Superman and Darkseid in that story. There's a moment in it, spoiler alert, where the story came out 16 years ago, where it appears that Darkseid may have killed Kara, and Superman lays into Darkseid, and there's this moment where he's describing to Darkseid everything that she's not going to be able to get to do. First kiss, won't know hearing a good song on the radio, feeling the wind in your hair when you're just driving out in the country, the thrill of your first dance, it's a really emotional moment. And Loeb does a great job of sort of displaying Darkseid's ideology, and he just sees all of these things as weakness. And the juxtaposition between the philosophies of Superman and Darkseid in that moment in particular is just pitch perfect. They adapted it into an animated movie that wasn't that great. Right. But if you read those original books, it really just the first 13, 14 issues of Superman, Batman, jumping off of what Sean said, you cannot go wrong there. And Michael Turner,
I was
not around anymore, unfortunately, but he was one of a kind as an artist. And he didn't do a lot of interiors for major comic book publishers, but he did the Supergirl story in Superman and Batman, and it's really solid.
I'm so glad. See, this is why I love doing these shows with my homies, because like Sean brought up something that I totally forgot about, and I remember loving that comic back in the day. I bought the trade.
I had a blast with it.
Same here. I remember when I was in a Batman and Superman phase there, right around I think Begins, and I bought that. And I just was like, whoa, this is so good. I couldn't believe how good it was. And just
for a while there, it was the highlight of the month for me, because like it was just, it wasn't all I mean, I don't think it's necessarily among the greatest comics ever written, but it's among the most it is among the most fun. So maybe that does put it on the list. And I think that I always had such a blast with reading that, and particularly like in the event that somebody here is a potential new reader of comic books, like this is a great bridge to like get you into, should you enjoy it? And I think you will, get you into reading even more comics. Like you will want to take more steps if you take this first one, and it's a really easy and fun one.
Loeb excels at juxtaposition too. Like the way that the first issue begins, Superman says the dream begins the same. I see my parents wishing me well as they place me in the rocket. And with Batman, it's the nightmare always begins the same. We walk down an alley, and it's just like, oh geez, this gets to the heart of these guys. Ooh. Yeah.
Now, and I did ask Chris this earlier, Andrew. You brought up Darkseid Wars. So I asked Chris, I'm like, I've heard this is good. Like Jason Fabok is a great artist, like, and him and Jeff Johns. And Chris, what was your response to me when I said that?
I agree with it.
But no, you were like, well, I don't know. You're like kind of giving me, you're doing that whole thing with me. And I'm like, okay.
For Darkseid War? No, I like Darkseid War.
Whatever. Yeah. I see you change your tune, sir, for the masses.
You are blindsiding me with information that does not sound like it's coming from me. That's all.
Okay, hold on. I do you remember me calling you when I was in the line at Safeway, and I was like, hey, give me some reviews. Okay, you go, okay, Justice League, Origin, Jeff Johns, Jim Lee. I'm like,
you're the one who told me don't go to Origin because
I told you not to go there. I know I did. I said, okay.
And I said, no, you should, because it's the first story that Cyborg's a part of the Justice League, and they use parts of his origin there and parts of his origin in Tales of the New Teen Titans #1.
Do you remember okay, do you remember when I said, okay, what about Dark Side War? You went, well, I don't know. I have to read Dark Knight's Metal. Okay,
if there's any,
there we go.
No, not Dark Knight's Metal. If there's any caveat, it's just that's the end of the Justice League run for Johns.
Oh, okay. All
so
right.
there's a lot of story that takes place.
I see.
Across that entire thing. Dark Side War is very much a culmination, not just of his Justice League run, but really kind of the New 52. It's kind of the grand finale of the New 52 at large. But I thought it was a great story. And Fabok, he's a world-class artist, and he just did more of that in Three Jokers. So,
Sean, did you read Three Jokers?
I have not read Three Jokers yet.
Oh, so. Dude!
I'll get on it. I'll get on it.
Okay, first of all, we've already done like what 4 hours on Three Jokers. I will literally do another 3 hours with you just to have you read it because I'll read it. No, because I freaking love. It's one of my favorite comic books maybe in the last 5 years. I love that story.
All right, I'm in.
Okay, I appreciate you. I appreciate you so
much. Let me rattle off. I'll go through it really fast. I'm not going to elaborate. Okay. These are some stories that I picked out that if you're into any of these things, maybe give it a shot. Okay. So DC Universe wide stuff that has to do with Darkseid, Seven Soldiers of Victory, which is a very long and sprawling but interesting lead into Final Crisis, and the Multiversity. Darkseid has a big presence in all of those major Morrison DC stories. Multiversity less so, but they mention alternate timelines at the end of the director's cut of this movie, so it might be there. With Cyborg, Tales of the New Teen Titans #1, his origin story, his first origin story, and the first 6 issues of Johns' Teen Titans run, where he serves as a mentor to characters like Tim Drake, Bart Allen, Cassie Sandsmark, and Connor Kent. And I love Connor Kent. With Flash, we're bringing up Johns a lot, which is kind of ironic, but Flashpoint is kind of a big part of it, and it's going to be the basis of the upcoming movie. Cyborg is basically Earth's Superman in the altered version of Flashpoint in the comics. Check out Showcase #4. Peter Vera and I were talking in the chat. You see hot dogs at kind of a weird point in this movie, but hot dogs were a kind of an important part of Barry Allen's very first appearance, which is kind of funny. With Superman, Funeral for a Friend kind of gets across some of what Lois is going through, and then Reign of the Supermen is where that's the first time you see the black suit, which is really the only thing that kind of matters in that, but it's a good story. And then we already talked about Superman, Batman. With Batman, Dark Knight Returns, obviously Snyder has a great deal of reverence for that story.
Really?
It's hard to if you have functioning eyes, you can tell. But in picking another story, I actually went to Batman Incorporated, the very first arc, because it's really the only time that I can remember seeing Batman act as a recruiter. And that's kind of a component of what he does in this movie. Also a very interesting story and a little divisive from some people.
It's a little weird, I'm gonna lie. It's a little weird.
Wonder Woman, I picked 3. There's one from 1995 called Second Genesis by John Byrne, issues 101 to 104 in volume 2, which is
we're getting deep cuts today.
Darkseid gets wind of the fact that the Olympian gods exist, so he goes to Themyscira to try and claim their power, and the Amazons say no and fight him. It's as cool as it sounds. Rise of the Olympian in 2008, Gail Simone and Aaron Lopresti. It's just a really cool story. There was a story right before that called Amazon's Attack that wasn't very good, but this is just kind of a very personal conflict for Wonder Woman, and Gail Simone's Wonder Woman run is just really solid. And then the last one for her that I chose was Blood by Brian Azzarello and Cliff Chiang. It was the very first Wonder Woman story of the New 52, and it kind of innovates the idea that she comes from gods. And Cliff Chiang's artwork is just gorgeous. And then finally, with Apocalypse, the Great Darkness saga from the Legion of Superheroes. They refer to the Great Darkness by name in Justice League as kind of a reference to Darkseid and his power and the allegiance to him.
We need to read that for the binge.
Paul Levitz and Keith Giffen, man, it's a great.
I know. I've only heard great things about the Legion. I've never got into those characters, but we're gonna read Darkseid War at some point.
Yeah,
at some point we're gonna do that.
Great Darkness saga. Yeah, sounds good.
Whatever.
And then, the last thing, Mr. Miracle, that came out from 2017 to 19 by Tom King and Mitch Garaz. It's a really interesting take on kind of a more humanistic perspective on Darkseid's power and someone who came from Apocalypse but tries to assimilate into American society with Big Barda, and it's just kind of weirdly sweet in a way. Barda's having a baby, and who's there?
Spoiler alert! Jeez,
the leader of the female Furies and Granny Goodness are in a hospital waiting room. It's crazy. It's cool.
And that's another one, Sean, too. I'm not sure if you read Mr. Miracle yet. I've read half of it and I loved it. And I just bought the trade. I have it digitally too, but I've been into physical stuff lately. So I bought the physical trade. It's coming. That'd be another one too. I'd be willing to have you on if you ever wanted to read that.
Yeah, I bought it and then hadn't had time to read it yet. But if I need to set aside time to talk about it, then I can do. I'll be a little more motivated.
There you go. Well, this has been freaking Sean. Thanks for coming on. I know I kind of.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me crash the party.
Well, I was like, it was funny. We're sitting there. I said, should we have anyone on? And Chris was like, yeah, I don't know. It's maybe be two of us. I was like, wait a minute, we can have Sean on. It's like it'd be perfect because I'm like he hasn't talked about a DC movie in a while. Let's have him on. Yeah, it's been a minute, and I was like, it'd be fun to have him on. He's always helping us out, and he's like, yeah, let's do that. I'm like, cool. And I figured you probably, if you can, just drop on, and sure enough. It did. I didn't want to announce it, just want to see
I didn't know if it was going to work out or not. But then I got here and I saw you guys on the stream, and I was like, I can hang out for a bit.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is great. This has been awesome. It feels very feels right. All three of us, This feels right. So no, what's that?
Yeah. It's like coming home.
I mean, it is. Yeah, it is. I mean, it is. We're just missing about tales about a boat trip. I mean, that's all we're missing here right now at this point. So, I mean, that's all we're missing at this point.
Do you really have to do that? Do you really have to?
Listen. No one knows what I'm talking about, Chris.
I think we should go.
Yeah, that's a good segue to get out of here. But anyway. Sean, obviously, everyone probably already knows where you're coming from here. Everyone's from you to me. So, whatever, pimp whatever you want. Whatever, go.
MCU fan show, which is where I think most of you know me from by now. So, you can listen to me over there.
Yeah, listen. Yeah, I show up there, and Chris, what about you?
Check out my review of Zack Snyder's Justice League at buychriscloud.com, and Discovery Debrief, my Star Trek shows on a little bit of a hiatus, but we're trying to get something back in line to review the latest season soon, hopefully with a couple of new friends. And other than that, Comic Binge, I suppose. Might be bringing comics on consoles to the channel. Might try to.
For sure.
Paul and I have already talked about getting on his couch and trying to play through Maximum Carnage together.
Dude, it's going to happen. So what we're going to do, this is right here. So what we're going to try to do is and you just fly up and hang out and do that with us. I'm serious, Sean. I'm not joking either. Once things settle down, I'm vaccinated. Once you get vaxxed, just come on up. Let's kick it. Seriously. No, but what we're going to do is we're going to sit down, we're going to play it, and we're going to trade off. And when we trade off, that's where we're going to, we'll be focusing and kind of talking about the story of Maximum Carnage. And I have I bought the trade. I'm not sure where it went. But
I might need to borrow that from you because I don't have a copy of it. I could go on unlimited, of course, but
physicals is so much more fun. I love, don't get me wrong, I love digital, but anyway,
of course,
we're gonna do Maximum Carnage, and we're playing that because it's a beat 'em up game. It's so much fun. So we'll do that, and we'll do more comments on console stuff there. Follow us on Twitter at Binge Comic. Please subscribe, like it, so then people can get into that awesome algorithm, or whatever that whole thing is. That beautiful, lovely algorithm.
Be sure to ring the notification bell.
Slap that like button like you're mad at it. And
my nephew always says smash the like, and I just go, oh my god.
We live in a bad age right now.
You gotta smash that like button, ring that bell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, everyone, thanks for joining us. Seriously, we had a lot of people, at least a lot for us, and grateful for every one of you. Anyone who listens, it takes time. Thanks again to Sean for showing up and always helping us out. And obviously, Chris, thank you for existing and being over here. I don't know, whatever I need to say to thank you to Chris, I'll say thank you. And we'll see you soon. I'll have some more videos coming up. I have a couple video ideas. One will be a new short views on a non big to comic book, and then maybe something about kind of overseeing a couple other things. So we'll see. Anyway, we'll be up with the live stream up again probably this week, maybe. We'll see. But either way, we'll see you soon, and read more comics.
Read more comics.